Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something loads of people use, maybe without thinking too much about it: online privacy tools. Specifically, we're looking hard at free virtual private networks, VPNs.
Yeah, and it's a really important conversation to have. VPNs themselves, the technology, they're designed to be fantastic
Right, they're
tools.
supposed to make you sort of invisible online.
Exactly. Encrypt your connection, hide your real IP address. The whole idea is to help you get around surveillance, whether that's from your ISP, the government, or, big tech tracking everything you do.
Sounds like the perfect defense, which explains why they're so popular, especially now with everyone worrying about being watched online. But we're focusing just on the free ones today,
Mm.
and our mission really is to unpack this fundamental conflict.
Hmm.
You've got a service promising to guard your data, but it costs nothing. So who's actually footing the bill?
And that right there is the paradox we need to tackle. You've probably heard that saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah, definitely heard that.
Well, with free VPNs, that's not just a saying. It's basically their entire business model. It works, and it makes a lot of money.
Okay, so how big a deal is this? Are we talking about a few bad apples, or is it more widespread? What are the actual numbers looking like?
The forecasts are, frankly, pretty alarming. Some research suggests that by 2025, something like 80% of free VPN apps might have aggressive tracking built right in,
80%. Wow.
and maybe 60% could be actively selling your data to others. So the tool meant for privacy, it flips. It becomes, well, surveillance as a service, essentially.
That feels like a complete betrayal. People are going for privacy and getting the opposite.
Precisely. And it's not even necessarily like pure malice driving it initially. It's often basic economics. Running a VPN network is expensive.
How so?
Think about it. You need servers all over the world, huge amounts of bandwidth, constant software updates, security upkeep. It costs a fortune. Free providers can't just absorb that. They have to make money from their users somehow.
Okay, let's break down that somehow. If it's not subscriptions, how are they monetizing people's clicks and searches? What data are they grabbing that's valuable?
It's usually a mix of things. They might flood your browsing with intrusive ads, some embed trackers, lots of trackers, actually, or collect device information, what they call telemetry.
Uh-huh.
But the really big one, they often log and sell your actual internet activity. The product becomes your sensitive data, where you browse, your real IP address, device IDs, even which other apps you're using. This gets bundled up and sold off, often instantly, to advertisers or data brokers.
So wait, if I use a free VPN because I want to research, say, a sensitive health condition privately,
They could be logging that search, packaging it, and selling it, yes.
that's deeply unsettling.
It is. And it gets worse, because beyond just selling your data, there are major technical and security problems with many of these free services. They're not just privacy risks, they can be outright dangerous.
Okay, technical problems. What kind of vulnerabilities are we talking about? Is it just sloppy work or?
It often stems from insecure coding, yeah. One big analysis looked at over 800 free VPNs and found nearly two-thirds use code with known vulnerabilities, stuff that actively leaks user info.
Two-thirds.
And then there's the protocols. Many free VPNs use old, weak protocols like PPTP, which nobody serious uses anymore, or they mess up the configuration of newer ones. This leads to leaks, specifically IPv6 leaks and DNS leaks.
Hold on, DNS leaks. Can you quickly explain what that means for someone using a VPN? If my DNS leaks, what's actually happening?
Okay, think of the VPN as a secure tunnel for your internet traffic, right? Hide your car, your IP address. DNS is like the phone book for the internet. It turns google.com into a numerical IP address the computer understands.
Got it.
If the VPN tunnel is leaky, when your computer asks for that translation via DNS, the request might actually skip the secure tunnel. It goes straight to your regular internet provider, unencrypted.
So my ISP sees exactly what website I'm trying to visit, even though I thought the VPN was hiding it.
Exactly. It totally defeats the purpose. You think you're covered, but your activity is visible right outside the shield.
Making the whole thing pointless.
Pretty much. And the stats on this are just, well, staggering. Studies have found that up to 84.5%, that's huge, of free VPNs leak your real IP address because of these flaws.
84.5%. That's not a small failure rate. That's catastrophic.
It is. And remember the malware point. This is where it gets genuinely scary. About 39% of those free apps also contained active malware.
Malware, like viruses and spyware.
Yep. And if you look just at Android apps on the Google Play Store, one study found 90% of the free VPNs leak data in some way. 90%.
So beyond just failing at privacy, they might be actively infecting your device. That's moved way past a simple conflict of interest.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's not just leakage or passive data selling. Some providers actively misuse your connection itself for profit, often maliciously.
How does that work? How can my connection be misused?
The classic example everyone points to is VPN back in 2015. They took the internet bandwidth of their free users and sold it to paying customers.
Sold my bandwidth.
Yes, effectively turning your computer and your home IP address into a node in a giant proxy network, sometimes called a peer-to-peer botnet. So someone else could be using your connection, your IP, to do, well, potentially illegal things. DDoS attacks, scraping sites, you name it, without your knowledge.
So my internet connection becomes a tool for potentially shady activities tied back to me. That's exploitation built right into the service.
It is, and we saw variations of this with the big 9/11 S5 botnet takedown more recently. That network was partly built by tricking users into installing free VPNs or similar software that secretly turned their devices into proxy exit nodes for cybercriminals.
Okay, this is bad. Let's shift to another layer of deception. The no logs promise. This seems to be the bedrock claim for nearly every VPN, free or paid. But how true is it, especially for the free ones?
Ah, the no logs policy. This is probably the biggest point of contention and often outright falsehood in the industry. Pretty much every provider splashes strict no logs policy all over their website.
Right, it's supposed to be the ultimate guarantee.
But incident after incident, breach after breach, confirms that many free VPNs do keep detailed logs. We're talking your original IP address, when you connected, for how long, how much data you used. Sometimes even, shockingly, plaintext passwords found in leaked databases.
Plain text passwords? Seriously?
Seriously, it shows a fundamental lack of security practice on top of the logging itself.
So what does real transparency look like then? How can you as a user actually verify if a no logs claim holds water?
You look for external validation. The reputable paid services, thinking of places like ProtonVPN, iVPN, Molvad, they don't just say no logs. They hire independent, respected security firms like PwC or Cure53 to conduct rigorous audits.
Audits? What do they audit?
They examine the provider's servers, their code, their internal processes, everything, to verify that the systems actually don't store user activity logs, matching the public promises. They publish these audit reports, too.
Okay, so public independent audits are key.
Absolutely. Free VPNs, you almost never see this. Their no logs claim is just marketing text on a web page with zero independent proof.
That lack of an audit is a massive red flag then. But there's another piece you mentioned, jurisdiction. Where the company is based legally, why does that matter so much?
Jurisdiction is critical. It dictates the laws the VPN provider must obey, regardless of their own privacy policy. We talk about the Eyes alliances, the 5 Eyes, 9 Eyes, 14 Eyes countries.
Like the US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand.
Exactly. Major intelligence sharing partners. If a VPN company is legally headquartered in one of those countries, they can be served with warrants or national security letters compelling them to collect user data.
So even if the VPN provider wants to protect user privacy and genuinely tries not to keep logs, a secret court order could force them to start logging everything. And they can't even tell anyone.
That's precisely the risk. They can be legally forced to log data, hand over any data they have, and be placed under a gag order preventing them from disclosing this to their users or the public.
Yeah.
Their privacy policy becomes meaningless in that context.
That's a huge vulnerability, especially for people in sensitive situations relying on that promised privacy.
It is. Now, some providers deliberately incorporate in places known as privacy havens, the British Virgin Islands, Panama, Switzerland countries, without mandatory data retention laws trying to shield themselves and their users.
Does that completely solve the problem?
It helps significantly, reducing the risk of domestic legal orders. But it's not foolproof. Powerful countries can still exert pressure or use international agreements to demand data, especially for serious criminal investigations. Plus, you still need to trust the provider themselves.
And history shows that even providers claiming no logs in favorable jurisdictions have handed over data when pressured, right?
Yes, there have been cases. High-profile incidents involving services like PureVPN and HideMeAss revealed they did have logs like connection timestamps and user IP addresses, which they provided to law enforcement despite their public claims. It proved the logs existed, likely due to legal obligations tied to where parts of their operations were or the specific nature of the requests.
The consequences of this kind of betrayal can be immense. Let's look at some specific real-world examples that highlight just how bad it can get.
Definitely. The SuperVPN breach in 2023 was a massive one. It exposed records for reportedly 360 million users.
360 million.
Yeah. And the leaked data included original IP addresses, email addresses, geolocation markers, even plaintext passwords for some users, and detailed activity logs. It was concrete proof they were logging extensively, despite saying they didn't. A catastrophic failure.
And thinking back to the misuse cases, that 9/11 S5 botnet really stands out as turning users into unwitting accomplices.
It really does. It perfectly illustrates that the danger isn't just losing your privacy. It's about your device being hijacked, your internet connection being used for crime, potentially making you legally liable. This connects directly to the broader ethical problems here.
What are those wider implications when the very tools meant to empower and protect end up harming people?
Well, you see a stark issue of digital inequality.
Huh.
The people who often need privacy tools the most, maybe journalists in repressive states, activists, people in marginalized communities, they might not be able to afford a paid VPN subscription.
So they turn to the free options.
Exactly. They rely on these free tools, which then expose them to greater surveillance or danger. It's a kind of digital disenfranchisement, a real ethical failing, where the most vulnerable are put at the highest risk by the tools promising safety.
Paying the highest price, their safety, for the lowest quality, potentially harmful product.
That's a good way to put it. And then there's the psychological aspect. We call it the privacy paradox. A user installs a free VPN, sees the little icon turn green, and feels instantly safer, maybe even invincible.
Right, that visual cue is powerful.
Very. But it's often a false sense of security. Believing they're protected, they might take more risks online, visit sensitive sites, communicate more openly, when in reality they could be completely exposed or even monitored by the VPN itself. Free VPNs exploit this trust gap, using privacy and security as bait while doing the exact opposite.
Okay, this is crucial information. Let's pivot to helping our listeners. What are the really clear, actionable red flags they can look for right now to avoid these risky services?
The absolute number one biggest red flag. It's simple. The service is completely free. Just remember the infrastructure costs we talked about. Running a reliable, secure global VPN network costs serious money. If they're not getting it from your subscription, they have to be getting value from you in other ways, usually involving your data or your connection. There's really no sustainable way around that.
So free itself is the warning sign. What else? Maybe when looking at an app in the store.
Permissions are a big one, especially on mobile. If a VPN app asks for access to your contacts, your camera, your location, your SMS messages, ask yourself why a networking tool would need that. It's usually a sign they're collecting far more data than necessary.
That makes sense. Anything else?
Look for vague, confusing, or just missing privacy policies. Check if they mention independent public security audits. If they don't, assume their claims aren't verified. And as we discussed, check where the company is legally based. If it's in a 5, 9, or 14 eyes country, be aware of the potential for legal compulsion, regardless of their policy.
Okay, so avoid totally free, check permissions, demand transparency in audits, and consider jurisdiction. Now, if someone does need a VPN and is willing to pay, what should they prioritize? What makes a good VPN?
First, choose reputable providers with a business model based on subscriptions, not data. Look for names that consistently get good reviews from security experts and have those independent audits we talked about. Proton VPN, Mullvad, iVPN are often mentioned examples.
You mentioned specific tech earlier, like RAM-only servers. Why are those important?
RAM-only servers are a fantastic security measure. Traditional servers store data on hard drives, where it can persist. RAM-only servers run entirely in volatile memory. Meaning if the server loses power, is rebooted, or even seized by authorities, all the operational data on it is instantly gone, wiped clean. There are simply no logs left to recover, which is a great defense against data demands.
That's a clever technical solution. What other features matter?
Definitely prioritize modern, secure protocols. WireGuard is the current gold standard. It's faster and generally considered much more secure than older options like OpenVPN or, God forbid, PPTP. And absolutely make sure the VPN has a reliable kill switch.
The kill switch, that's the feature that cuts your internet if the VPN connection accidentally drops, right?
Exactly. It prevents your real IP address from leaking out even for a moment if the VPN tunnel fails. It's essential. And lastly, for maximum privacy, consider using anonymous payment methods if the provider accepts them, cryptocurrency, or even cash mail to some providers. This helps decouple your payment identity from your VPN usage.
We've covered the user side extensively. But what about the bigger picture? From a policy standpoint, shouldn't something be done to tackle this widespread deception in the free VPN market?
There's definitely a need for regulatory action. Policymakers could start by demanding clarity and honesty in marketing. The term no logs needs to be standardized and legally meaningful, tied to audits, not just a throwaway phrase. Perhaps some kind of standardized, mandatory transparency score for all VPNs, making providers clearly disclose ownership, jurisdiction, logging practices, and audit status up front. We need to move away from this environment where unsubstantiated claims run rampant.
This deep dive really crystallizes the difference, doesn't it? A properly vetted, audited, paid VPN can be a valuable tool for privacy. But a free VPN, as we've heard today, it's often something entirely different, maybe even dangerous, a real conflict of interest masquerading as help.
Yeah, the research is pretty clear. The vast majority of free VPN services aren't just ineffective. They pose a significant risk. They take the promise of anonymity and twist it into an instrument for surveillance. So the takeaway for you, the listener, has to be this. Genuine digital privacy and security cost money to implement correctly. The free alternative often carries the highest cost of all your data, your security, your anonymity.
It really forces you to shift your thinking. It's not just about using a VPN, but critically examining who runs the VPN you're trusting with basically your entire online life.
Precisely. And maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. If we accept that many free VPNs function as surveillance as a service, what does that say about the ethics of the platforms that host them, like major app stores, and the advertisers who readily buy the data harvested through them? Where do their responsibilities lie in enabling this kind of digital exploitation?
That's definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.